afraid I've run out of road myself now. Because not only are we looking at his desperate attempt to wriggle off yet another hook that would have done for any other mortal years ago, we're also seeing him announce that he's going to vote against the so-called Windsor framework. Rishi Sunak's I mean, desperate and imperfect attempt to clean up some of the mess made by the deal that Boris Johnson said was oven ready. I've talked to you about this before. It's like a Russian doll. This is why I am not struggling with my new book, How They Broke Britain, which is an account of these people and what they've done to us, how they created an ecosystem in which these kind of madnesses could happen. But I'm having to edit all the time as I go, because I start to talk about one thing. I open one Russian doll and there's another one inside, and you get distracted by the other one. You should be describing and examining the first doll. But, oh, look, there's another doll. Let's have a look at that one. And you reach in to get the other doll, and his head comes off, and there's another doll inside. So that just happened then, did you see? So I talk about how Boris Johnson is preparing to vote against Rishi Sunak's Windsor framework, the Windsor framework that is absolutely designed to fix some of the mess that Boris Johnson made, while telling you that the mess was an oven-ready deal that would get Brexit done. It's a Russian doll of dishonesty. So we start off talking about the lies about parties at Downing Street. We get immediately distracted, as he probably intends, by the decision announced earlier this morning that he's going to vote against Rishi Sunak's attempt to fix his own mess. And we remember that the mess came about as a consequence of him telling the country that he had an oven-ready solution to the intractability of Brexit. All of these boneheads, some by name and nature, all of these boneheads queuing up at the time to tell you that it was oven-ready and it would get Brexit done. And then before Boris Johnson's signature was even dry, idiots up to and including David Frost, the so-called chief negotiator, were trying to disown it, culminating, here's another Russian doll, in Brandon Lewis standing up in the House of Commons and announcing that we were prepared to break international law in a very limited and specific way. This is our country. This isn't like a Westminster drama. It's not like a farce. You may well have Boris Johnson falling out of a wardrobe with his trousers round his ankles, but it's not a farce for the rest of us. It's our country, it's our home, it's where we grow up. Most of us aren't rich enough to up sticks and move somewhere else, or to transfer operations into the back garden of a billionaire plutocrat sponsor like Boris Johnson has done. We have to live with all of this. Today's a day where it's just not good enough for Liz Truss and Ian Duncan Smith and Boris Johnson and the rest of them to say we're going to vote against Rishi Sunak's deal. I think about this a lot. And I think it's got something to do with environment, not the environment, but I just think that the way journalists treat them, I watch it sometimes, and the way that the House of Commons operates. Even a potato in human form, like Jonathan Gullis or Mark Francois, when they walk around the House of Commons, they feel like Billy Big Bananas. And this just injects them with a sense of importance that nothing they have ever done or achieved could possibly justify. 30p Lee gets elected as the Labour MP for Ashworth in Nottinghamshire, as the Conservative MP for Ashworth in Nottinghamshire, about a year after he was slung out of the Labour Party. It's incredible that these people end up in the House of Commons and then end up believing that they are somehow worthy of the honour the position bestows. So today, Liz Truss, let's vote against Rishi Sunak. Nothing is ever more important than them. Nothing is ever more important than their own ludicrous ambitions and machinations. Yeah, you lost the whip. If you voted against Boris Johnson's Brexit attempt, you actually lost the whip. A few months later, you lost your seat in the House of Commons. You could go from Chancellor of the Exchequer, as Philip Hammond did, to being actually deselected after decades of service by your constituency party. And here he is today. Still lying, still swivelling, still relying upon the support of sycophants and client journalists. How could anybody construct an argument today You couldn't possibly have expected Boris Johnson. I can't say these words out loud. It's beyond surreal. Oh, you couldn't possibly have expected the man in charge of the rules and charged with explaining the rules to actually understand the rules. Of course he has to rely upon the advice of his colleagues. Just run through those words a syllable at a time. Of course, you couldn't expect the man in charge of formulating the rules and explaining the rules to the country to understand what the rules actually were. That's what we've been reduced to. Parliamentarians, members of the media, members of the public, possibly your Auntie Doris and your Uncle Keith, all queuing up to pretend to believe, because they're not just lying to you. This is the gift Boris Johnson gives to all of his supporters. He turns them all into liars. But not just people who lie to others, but people who lie to themselves. And they're lying to themselves today. It's perfectly reasonable for the man whose job it was to formulate the rules and explain the rules to not understand the rules. It's the place you end up in when you've given up pretending that he's not a liar. I can't really keep that up anymore, lads. He's a liar, isn't he? I mean, he's obviously like, we knew that all along. His wives told us he was a liar. His editors told us he was a liar. His party leaders told us he was a liar. All of his former friends told us he was a liar. Former colleagues told us he was a liar. Everybody told us he was a liar. I can't really do that anymore. I can't pretend he's not a liar. The evidence that he's a liar is there. In fact, he's admitted he's a liar. He's just going to try and claim in Parliament that he was a liar by accident rather than a liar on purpose. So now you've got the job of defending the fact that he lied by accident. And how are you going to do that? Oh, he was given bad advice. He was given inaccurate. I mean, they're queuing up to say that he wasn't, by the way, just in case you're swallowing any of that crud. They're queuing up to say, I never gave him that. I gave him the opposite advice. I certainly never did. But he's claimed it's what he does. I've explained this to you 1,000 times. 1,000 times. He says what gets him through the next 5 seconds. Doesn't care about 5 minutes, doesn't care about 5 days, doesn't care about 5 years. He says what gets him through the next 5 seconds. And what got him through the next 5 seconds when he said that he'd relied upon advice was the lie that he had relied upon advice, that he'd somehow been told that that rules and guidance had been followed at all times. They couldn't prove it in the moment, you see. Keir Starmer couldn't prove it in the House of Commons. It's a lifetime of lies that prepares you for a moment like that. A lifetime of lies. Lying to your wife about the lipstick on your collar. Lying to your boss about your political ambitions. Lying to your party leader about, you name it. Lying to your readers about bendy bananas. Lie after lie after lie after lie. A lifetime of lies means that it becomes not even second nature. It replaces what passed for first nature in the first place. It becomes first nature. It becomes reflexive. It becomes knee-jerk. It becomes immediate. You're presented with a problem. You lie without thinking. Remember how it evolved? Do you remember how it evolved? There weren't any parties. There were not any parties at all at Downing Street. Lie number 1, 5 minutes, got him through 5 seconds, right? Lie number 2, there were parties, but that I certainly didn't attend them. Lie number 2, gets him through the next 5 seconds. Then reality comes knocking once again. Okay, there were parties, and I did attend them, but I didn't realise they were parties. Lie number 3, we've reached deep into the absurd there already. I went to a party without realising it was a party. I was ambushed by a cake. We've reached so far into the absurd, but you can't let go. He can't stop lying because it's all he can do, and his supporters can't let go because to let go is to admit to being stupid, gullible, supine, sycophantic, and part of a project that has damaged our country in ways that will still be measuring in decades to come. So you can't let go. You know, I often wonder what I'd do every day if I'd fallen for it. I bent briefly in 2008 because it looked like a change would be nice in London, and the amnesty for illegal immigrants seemed to me to be the only way of detoxifying one of the ugliest issues ever to pollute public discourse. And also, I wasn't really paying attention. I was relatively new in the job. So I voted for him to be Mayor of London. Within a month, Not only had I realised the epic scale of my error, but I'd also been told by someone at the Evening Standard that he was never going to be interviewed by me again because I'd pulled his pants down over the firefighters' crisis, over the firefighters' strike. The scales fell from my eyes so quickly. But what would I do if I'd spent 20 years blowing smoke up Boris Johnson's backside? How could I even come to work? The light would come on the microphone and I just want to go, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Or would I sit here on a day like today and pretend to believe that the man in charge of formulating the rules and explaining the rules to the country could not be expected to understand the rules? This is beyond politics now. It's moved into the realms of psychology, pathology. Absolutely incredible. And we're still doing it. And we've got no choice. That's what really grinds my gears. I don't want to talk about this idiot today. I don't ever want to talk about him again. I will be charged, as many others will too, with counting, explaining, detailing the damage done to everything from democracy itself to faith in politicians to the entire bloody country. Of course we have to carry on talking about that for years to come, but I don't want to talk about him again. We got his number a decade ago. Know exactly what he is. But here we are, still having to process, explain, deal with Boris Johnson's lies. He lies like the rest of us breathe. He lies like the rest of us drink and eat. He can't open his mouth without lying. And here they still are, queuing up to stick up for him. Nadine Dorries, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Daniel Moylan. The latter got a seat in the House of Lords. The elevation, let's see, another Russian doll. Oh, there's something else he's damaged. He's rendered the House of Lords a repository for idiots and cronies, where once, although a deeply flawed institution, it could at least be viewed almost as a reward for a lifetime of service or achievement. Now you've got Zach Goldsmith sitting in there next to Evgeny Lebedev, all because of Johnson. All because of Johnson. Everywhere you turn, the consequences of his corruption are clear. But the British media still has to dedicate attention to balance. Oh, and here's someone to defend him. We're really scraping the bottom of the barrel today, lads. We've only got Daniel Moylan. But we've got to put someone on because otherwise it wouldn't be balanced. So here's someone to tell you that despite the fact that it's soaking wet outside, it's not actually raining. Boris Johnson's not actually a liar. Boris Johnson is an honest man. No matter that he's lied about everything since the day he was born, no matter that his own headmaster warned his own father that the man was incapable of not just following rules that everybody else had to abide by, but understanding why he should do. But here's Daniel Moylan to tell you that Boris Johnson is an honest man. Or here's some Herbert from his days as London Mayor to stick up for him and help you blow more smoke up his backside. And it's not funny. It's not funny. You can have days when you think it might be. There are moments when you appreciate the pageantry, and if it's your job to talk about stuff, you're kind of grateful for people who provide you with so much material, so much content, so much ammunition. But it's not funny. Not when you see it today in conjunction with this attempt to sabotage Rishi Sunak's attempt to undo some of the damage done by that bovine withdrawal agreement that they were trying to disown before they'd even read it. Ian Duncan Smith's on the list. The mad, the bad and the ugly queuing up to scupper Rishi Sunak's deal. Ian Duncan Smith, who stood up in the House of Commons and laughed at the idea that they needed to read the withdrawal agreement. Laughed at it. Within weeks, he's complaining about what's in it. But in that moment, in the House of Commons, he laughed at the suggestion they should have more time to read it and even debate it. And today, all the people that voted for it are voting against Rishi Sunak's attempt to try to undo some of the damage that everybody who understands things has been explaining since January of 2017 was absolutely inevitable. If you want to abide by the rules, the requirements, the spirit of the Belfast Agreement, you cannot have a border on the island of Ireland, and that means that you cannot have regulatory alignment between the Great Britain and Northern Ireland unless Great Britain remains regulatory aligned with the entire single market and customs union. The number of people who attempted to claim that that was wrong or dishonest or exaggerated or ignorant is, well, pretty similar to the list of people preparing to vote against Rishi Sunak's attempt to clean up their own mess. And still they rise, untouched. Invent a ministry for Jacob Rees-Mogg to come up with benefits and then just quietly close it again when he fails. Allow Nadine Dorries to become Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport and then just stay silent when she reveals herself to be supernaturally stupid in the course of doing her duties and supremely unpleasant in her treatment of decent journalists and individuals. Bring people like Jonathan Gullis and 30p Lee into the House of Commons because you've got rid of the last vestiges of integrity and intellect that your party had managed to accrue over decades. Wave goodbye to Philip Hammond and Rory Stewart and Anna Soubry and bring in Brendan Double Barrel, Lee Anderson and Jonathan Gullis. All on Johnson. All of it on Boris bloody Johnson. And here we are again, getting ready to have a conversation about a huge amount of lies that people in my profession and his party will be queuing up to pretend are not lies or to claim are not lies. They will be lying about a liar because when you lie down with a liar, you become one. 03456060973 is, as ever, the phone number that you need. I think I'll start with an attempt to knit together the Privileges Committee inquiry and the simultaneous announcement that his most sycophantic supporters are going to try to scupper Rishi Sunak's Windsor framework. And I will ask you, with a heavy heart, and probably not for the first time, but please, God, for the last, what is wrong with these people? 03456060973. I'll give you the 10 names that we've gathered so far. There will no doubt be others. They might have emerged in the course of the morning. But what is wrong with these people? That's what I want to know. Boris Johnson, Ian Duncan Smith, Liz Truss, Priti Patel, Mark Francois, Jacob Rees-Mogg, James Duddridge, Somebody Jones, Andrea Jenkins and Peter Bone. What is wrong with these people? Look at what they've done and explain to me how they could possibly contemplate this morning doing more. More damage, more lies, more self-interest, more prioritisation of their own position and their ludicrous jockeying over the state of the actual nation. Call me now, 0345 6060 973. What is wrong with these people? What is wrong with them? I might stop talking for a bit now.
LBC.
In a crisis, service matters. Which surveyed more than 10,000 energy customers and independently assessed the performance of every major supplier. Only one measured up. Octopus Energy is the only Which recommended energy supplier. Octopus Energy, recommended by Which 6 years running.
To save money, I was told to stop feeding Pickles his favourite